Hi there. So my last video really sucked, apparently. I was trying to do a demonstration of the origins of morality. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but nobody got it, apparently. I was trying to use little fingers to show how we experience pain, and then we can tell when others are like us, and then we can apply our understanding of pain to that other person, and then therefore we don't hurt them. That's the whole morality story in a nutshell right there. But at some point, to demonstrate that idea of pain, I pricked my finger. Unfortunately, I did that right after I'd introduced another set of hands, and so probably a lot of people thought that that other set of hands was attacking me, and then I was not retaliating, and that was my moral message, which had absolutely nothing to do with what I was trying to say. So anyway, it sucked. And then the comments got all heated up because this fellow latched on to this idea of looking like something, and was on me about how basing your morality on just appearances is no good. And sorry, that's when I say it looks like something, I mean looks like in every sense of the word, in every using every faculty you have at your disposal to determine what reality is as you look into things, as you see things. So if I, for example, communicate with somebody by email that I've never met, I can read what he says and get a sense that the way he thinks is the same as the way I think, and or she, and therefore kind of bond with the person, and I can say to myself that that person looks like me, and that is truly what I meant. So, based on that sucky video and the heated comments, I now feel the need to clarify what the hell I was talking about. So here we go again. It's Pat Condell who inspired me to answer this, since he asked, where do we get our morality? I think it's a combination of things. I already said it once. As creatures in the world, we experience pain or hunger, probably first, and through that we get the idea of bad or evil, and through pleasure, say eating something or whatever, we get the idea of good. So it is directly through this hardwired, your body's just telling it to you, pain and pleasure, that we gain this initial understanding of good and evil, as it applies to us, selfishly. And then there's the other part of morality that we experience as social creatures. It does appear that we have hardwired into us a certain recognition of others as being like us, perhaps in the same way that ants and bees have hardwired into them their social nature. You can see in experiments children recognizing others as being like themselves, imagining what's going on in the head of that other person. Either way, we at some point recognize others that are like us, and it is possible to evolve in that understanding to the point where one recognizes all living things as somehow being like us. We do see a connection. So our recognition in some way of ourself in others allows us to begin to perhaps apply our understanding of pain and pleasure, good and evil, to others, to actually experience the concept of good and evil from their point of view, which is our point of view because we view them as being like us, or even as us. So, for example, my family is looking like an extended sort of self. These people are very close to me, and so I'll be very concerned about the pain and pleasure as it applies to these people, because I see them as almost part of me, and I'm part of them. It's a single self. And then we're educated to apply the same concept to, say, a community, or maybe a tribe, or a nation. And then we could say that Christianity's big contribution to the West, I think maybe it's Buddhism who did it in the East, was to have us apply that same concept of an expanded or enlarged self to all of humanity. And so we have the idea of the brotherhood of man and the human family and all that. These days, I think we take that very much for granted, that we are supposed to empathize with others and put ourselves in their shoes just in the same way we would for our own children or parents, or siblings, or ourselves. And let me say again that this sort of highly personal concern for others that far away from you is a form of selfishness applied to an extremely expanded self. Now, my thought about Christians, and when I say Christians, I really mean like ethnic Christians, which is to say Westerners who have Christianity built into their culture, so that you get even atheists repeating Christian morality. What I think I noticed there is people repeating these superficial Christian truisms without really apparently looking looking at the underlying selfish elements that leads to those truisms, and the result is a certain lack of reality. So people get these pie-in-the-sky ideas about morality, but they just can't sustain. So they talk a good talk, but they don't walk the walk, and I find that kind of annoying. I mean, it's easy to send money to an NGO when the NGO tells you that they're helping the poor, and so if you just, take this money and send it to this organization, that the result is some kind of help to people you care about. But it doesn't really work that way. The question is whether you would throw yourself in front of a truck to save a starving child in Africa. And I'm saying that as someone who did go to Africa in the Peace Corps and tried to save starving children. And what I learned is that it's a thankless task, because you're there with your specious morality, which is what it is, and everyone else is going about their selfish lives. And there was one case where the cornmeal that we were distributing had this nice yellow color, and the people getting the cornmeal were either selling it or taking it home and painting their houses with it. And what does that all mean? Well, they weren't really hungry, but somehow we had it in our sort of robotic moral mind that they must be hungry because they had a disaster, so therefore here's a lot of food that they don't normally eat. And the whole thing was kind of a mess, really. Expanding one's personal vision of self to all humans, so that we all are one single self, is an extraordinarily ambitious undertaking. People are different. They live far away. They are living under different circumstances. They're raised differently. They're probably hardwired slightly differently. The obstacles to treating these strangers as oneself are enormous. To truly satisfy the morality that Jesus talks about, this is what we have to do. Otherwise, you're not living good and evil on these other people's behalf the way you do for your family or for your children. So I came back from 15 years in international development with the feeling that you should do your best to help within the scope that you can reach. There is no shortage of room to be as moral as you could possibly be, even with a single other person for your whole life if you want. So yeah, I guess one grows as a moral person by extending one's understanding of others to a point where you can truly identify with them. But again, the obstacles to that are high and many. I think that the typical person doesn't get that far within their family or a few close friends, I suppose. And the rest of it is sort of false, imaginings about people that you don't really understand, and you're just pretending that you do somehow. So you act like you know what it's like to be them, but you don't really. And so it's hard to be truly moral with these other more distant people. So I don't know really where this is going, but I think it's an interesting subject, and I think people take morality maybe too much for granted. And I think it's important to understand the role of selfishness in morality. It pervades every level. It comes down to really who you are and what your sense of self really includes. Working to expand that sense of self is a good goal, but given how hard it is, I guess one should really focus on seeing what level of sort of expanded self one can achieve, and then within that being naturally moral.